Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Anyone else? Ms. Lopez?
Good morning. I think I understand what's been discussed. I just wanted to double check. First of all, I did hear that at all times would be taken out so that it doesn't obligate the agency to follow all future laws. So I think that makes sense. And if there needs to be additional clarity, just may suggest all applicable laws at the time of the filing. So that might help to clarify that it's you sort of a snapshot at that moment. And then for going forward, if the applicant doesn't do something that they were supposed to, you recognize that you're not the enforcement agency, that there are other agencies that would monitor and take action as necessary. You're simply suggesting that you would track it so that for a future Delta planning process, you might revise or improve how you're doing it. So it is more of a, as Joe said, passive, but still a tracking, but there is no expectation that somehow you will call that applicant back or take any kind of action.
I don't agree with the latter part of your statement. Okay. Council may well want to call somebody back and ask questions. What are you going to do if the science program says there's a following crisis on water quality or a crisis on ecosystem, it involves these territorial land? We shouldn't discuss it?
Well, that's what I'm asking. So if the applicant...
We're given authority to hold hearings, investigate, right, go around the state, pursue the co-equal goals, but we're not hiring 100 people with badges to come out and particularly go up into the mountain county you represent and tell you to shape up.
And there's two scenarios I just want to be clear. One is at the time that you filed your application, you met everything, you're good to go. Years later, conditions change, laws may change. That scenario would not apply to what you just described. Look, I hear that it's...
Look, that's a common problem in all development issues. You get approval one time, you can't finance it, people go into bankruptcy, a new owner buys property, and 25 years later, somebody says, well, I got a permit and got clearance. Mm-hmm. In the meantime, of course, the county has rezoned other property and roads run through things that you're in. You might argue you have a complete vested right to do anything that was contemplated 25 years ago, but if there are problems that have been created since, floodplain problems, runoff problems, most people decide rather than fight the lawsuits on nuisance and abatement statutes and so on, they submit an application to amend or seek a conditional use permit or a variance of some kind. And if you're suggesting that once approval is given, any activity determined by the local agency is okay standing on its own without regard to anything else, I think that's an overstatement, Ms. Lopez. You can't convert an application for a park into a rendering plant and expect no consequences from that.
And I'm not debating or arguing with you. I just want to understand because I want to know, so I can clearly understand, so I could either support something or provide an alternative suggestion. So what I hear is that you file the application, 5 years later, the project actually is taking place. It's getting built or what have you. And what I thought I understood was as long as you were consistent when you filed the application, that 5 years later when you're building the project, that you don't have to meet all the existing laws and conditions at that time, as long as you met it when you filed the application. But I hear you saying something different. I hear you saying that since projects may take 10, even 15 years to actually get off the ground, that even though you were consistent 10 years ago, at the time that you're actually putting the project online, if you are not consistent, then it would be brought back. Is that correct?
No.
Okay.
I think some parties are suggesting that the council would say that whenever a covered action appears, even if the actual project is dramatically and significantly changed, Or if intervening federal or state laws occur that bring it into question, they would say, well, you can go ahead and do it anyway. We're not in a position to say that. Local agencies have to decide whether they are covered by a federal law or they are not covered by a federal law, whether they obey a requirement on water quality standards or not. That's up to you. But to argue the issue, this is the difference, really, I think, between do we propose a covered action project and have the right to change it dramatically on our own once it's been certified as consistent. I think that's problematic. Two, do we have a right to proceed with the project making minor variations and adjustments? That's commonly what local governments face when they change use permits, zoning variances, all that kind of stuff. And the answer is maybe. Do they have to come back? It depends. You look at the statute and you decide if it meets the test of law.
And I agree that if your project changes, that is a different story. But if your project doesn't change, I've done everything right at the time of the filing. But 5-10 years later, external conditions change. So I've done everything that I'm supposed to do. Is that external factors changed? Then what happens is
well, look, that's the suggestion made before. A project approved 25 years ago in the city of Stockton didn't have to meet the requirements imposed by state law, 5 or 6 years ago, for a 200-year flood protection. Are they entitled to proceed? We're the least of the city's problems on that. And nobody gave us the authority to vary it.
Mr. Chair, I think that the point's pretty clear. She's asking, though, that if you get the certification here, you still have to comply. I mean, when you got to get those permits, they have court. You'll have to continue to maintain those as being current and get those before you can construct a project. But that if you've got the certification here and the project doesn't change, then I would think that the project doesn't, there's no reason for this from the standpoint of what the council has put in place. You're still consistent in that fine. You still got to meet those laws. I mean, in order to get the permits, you have to do that. So I guess that's my sense. And I don't know, Joe, maybe you could wait.
So if you're worried that the commission, that the council is going to come after you, I don't think you need to be worried about that.
And we're not even in the zone, but I just want to get clarification, which I appreciate. But just going forward, you never know which part of the state you're going to land. So I always like to get clarity on issues that may impact the state.
I agree. The council